Okay, we are going to get started. Good afternoon, good morning in certain places. I'm Kim, I'm the marketing director from Pugpig, coming to you from Pugpig headquarters today. A few housekeeping things I just wanted to cover. First of all, this session is being recorded so that we can make it available to you afterwards. We will be distributing this material to our customers afterwards as well. The gist of today is that we want to take you through some of the key findings from Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference and what that means to Pugpig products and users. Some features that we'll go through today, you'll note, will be upgraded just as part of your normal ongoing platform support as a Pugpig customer. And again, I just want to take the opportunity to say thanks. But there are a few areas that we would definitely love to get your feedback on and sort of get a bit of scale of the relevance of those features to you so that we can figure out where that lies in our development priorities. And to that end, I'm joined by my fantastic colleagues. We've got Harry here, who's our head of product, and Nick, who's our senior developer, who are going to take us through these points. So the agenda for today is we're going to go through a quick product update, and then we're going to go take you through some of these key findings, which includes the likes of device support, some aspects of subscription pricing and family sharing, and also get again some of your feedback on the relationships between what Apple's trying to do for its platforms and how that affects its users. And towards the end, we will take questions. But throughout the whole session, please do feel free to ask any questions in the chat window. I'll be monitoring that and feeding back to the speakers. And again, if we don't get to your question, don't worry, we can certainly answer that in the context of support in our normal customer relationship here at Pugpig. So again, thanks once again for being the customer, and we're gonna kick off. So over to Harry.
Hey everybody, yeah, I'm Harry, the head of product here at Pugpig. Nice to meet you. Cool, so a bit of housekeeping up front actually. iOS 14, we are expecting to come out in October. Again, we don't really know much more than you do on that. That's based off of Apple's earnings call last week. It's based off of basically what they've done in the past. Again, as always, we'll be supporting it out of the gate. We are testing on that with all of our apps and our other platforms. Nothing to worry about so far. It's all looking wonderful. And with, yes, as always, with one hand, we give us, and the other, we very, very slightly take us away. So we will be dropping towards iOS 11, less dramatic than earlier years because there are no devices that are being left on iOS 11. Everything that could get iOS 11 is going to iOS 12. So you'll see on this, this is sort of a cross section of our user base on the screen here. It says 1.9% there is on earlier. That goes all the way back down to iOS 8. We still have some devices running on. And for anyone who is on an older OS, they aren't getting left behind. They just don't get any new updates. So their app will still continue to work. They can subscribe, buy stuff, do whatever they want. But yeah, looking forward to it coming out in October. The sort of, not exactly the headline change, but one of the most striking changes of iOS 14 is sort of the soft murder of IDFA. It was sort of predicted beforehand that IDFA, the identifier for identification for advertisers, was going to be completely killed. It actually wasn't. It was slightly softer than that, but now it's this explicit, scary opt-in. You'll see on the side of that slide there, which pretty much no one is going to opt into doing. There are a few people who have made estimates somewhere between 1% and 20%. It's quite hard to know, but realistically, very, very few people are going to opt into that. If they don't opt into that, then you can track nothing about them from an attribution point of view. So this is a huge challenge for the main attribution platforms, right? This is AppsFlyer, Branch, Singular, even down to sort of Firebase are offering things like that. And all of them are really impacted by this and they've got a lot of comms about it, you'll see. And we'll talk on the next slide a bit about how they're dealing with it. But it also impacts the places these apps are served, right? Facebook and Google in particular, they've been able to build up these really sort of rich, nice profiles of people by getting access to these IDFAs through the serving of these ads. And now they're suddenly losing that ability to tie sort of that data to the individual level. Yeah, if we go to the next slide, you'll see what they're replacing it with. The very, very catchily named SK Ad Network. It's another piece of Apple code. It's been around, sort of in development for a while. It's not going to really launch in anger until iOS 14 comes out. And this is Apple's new framework for basically tracking install ads. So you can still attribute an install to a served ad. You can still track conversions on that. So it's not just this person installed the app, it's also installed and then went on and subscribed, which is of course much more valuable. But that tracking is now time limited. So you're given a window which you can extend up to a point, and you specify your conversion events. And if one of those events happens inside that window, they'll pass it back. If the user does not convert in that time, you're not going to get anything back after. It's about 24 hours, I think, but extensible. And the key change is that it's anonymized. There is no unique identifier. We'll tell you some limited demographics. Well, we won't. Apple will tell you some limited demographics. They'll tell you he's on an iPhone 12, he's in Scotland, and he speaks Greek. You'll know that much about the user, but pretty much nothing more identifiable than that. So it's really broad swathes paintings of who these users are when they're installing and converting inside your app. So that makes a big difference to retargeting. Retargeting is just as broad as that now. You can't retarget someone based on exact behaviors they've taken. You can only retarget very broad groups based on device, region, language, etc., and whether they converted or not. That's sort of a very broad swathed way of retargeting people. Still possible, but much, much less accurate. And lookalike audiences are now also equally broad. It's not based off quite specific usage patterns. It's just, did they convert, and these demographic data. So that's really been sort of the powerhouse of what is an $80 billion attribution industry. So it's quite a strong move by Apple, but it's also not one that hadn't been seen coming. And it's probably, very much conjecture, but probably one that Google will follow a year or so down the line. Right now, most attribution platforms aren't supporting SKAd network. You can be sure they will. Singular made a fuss about being the first to market with support for that. They all probably will come out with it before or maybe shortly after the actual launch of iOS 14. At a platform level, we are supporting it. But really, that does depend on the various SDKs. We've always been not particularly prescriptive about how we do attribution. We know you're going to have much stronger thoughts, beliefs, plans with this. So we've traditionally just integrated with the SDKs you come to us with, and as they release new versions, we will implement them in conversation with you, and that should enable SKAd network attribution tracking. And this is probably the prettiest flowchart I could find on how it works. We're going to share these slides with you afterwards, so don't worry about sort of interpreting this entire thing now, but it just shows you that flow from the ad being served, clicked, following that install through, attributing it back, and then you'll get a little list there of what gets passed back, and it's literally the ad, the campaign, the conversion value, so what did they buy anything and what was it, but yeah, no device ID, which until now has been an incredibly useful identifier. So that's the big change. I'm going to talk you through a few smaller ones now. The price increase modal. So up until now, you increase the price of a subscription. Apple sends all your people with a subscription an email. They have to click on a link in that email and agree to it, or their subscription churns. Now, it is both of those things. It is still the same email, but it is also this modal you're seeing on the right-hand side here. So that will pop up. We'll talk about when in a moment. And that just explains all of the same stuff. So you got the subscription to this app, you were paying this, you're now paying this, and a button to agree to the new price. Again, if you don't do this and you don't agree in an email, the subscription will churn, so while that seems like it could be quite an impactful change, in theory, anyone who's a really loyal user of your app is going to go and resub anyway, should they miss both the modal and the email. But still, you want to make that as frictionless a process as possible when increasing these prices. We have the ability to defer this being displayed until a sort of a key point, which we are internally debating when the best time to show that is. We don't want to just thrust it on your users as soon as they open the app, because they're quite likely to just close that thing. So we're playing internally with the best time to pop that up. But yeah, that's the new price increase modal. Family sharing. Something that a lot of people have thought were coming for a very long time, but haven't. So this is essentially right now, until some point in October. If you and your wife or your child or whoever in your family group want to subscribe to the same product, you're buying 2 or 3 or 4 subscriptions. And that traditionally has driven a lot of off-platform subs. I know that me and my wife both have a Headspace subscription we bought on Headspace because we could not do one in the app. So Apple is now making it possible to buy 1 subscription for your family group and share that across everyone in that group. It is opt-in, which is sort of the key. So we haven't decided on what our default will be yet. It'll be something you control in App Store Connect, but you'll be able to make subscriptions by default, shared across family group or not. Theoretically, there's cannibalization. Well, yeah, cannibalization there of families who were buying multiple subscriptions, but anecdotally and through reading, it's unlikely to be a huge amount of people who are now going to suddenly save money by sharing that subscription. Most of them were just either buying off platform or just buying one and sharing an iPad. So it's unlikely to make a huge difference. This is quite cool for sort of our customers who have multiple apps with us, because it is a place you can experiment. You can try, a couple of apps with it on, with it off, and see, does it make a notable difference? And of course, if you do that, we would love to know the answers. Cool, yeah.
Yeah, so to that end, we'd love to get your thoughts. So given the choice, you should have a poll now that's popped up on your screen. Given the choice, would you enable or disable family sharing of in-app purchases for your apps? I see the results coming through. We'll give it another few seconds and we'll share them back to everyone. Okay, results are in. So most of you believe that you're going to enable, you're going to let families share their apps amongst themselves. A few people are in the disable category, and yeah, we're not sure. So great, on to the next one.
Cool. Privacy, more privacy. So this obviously drives the IDFA changes I spoke about earlier. This is a new display you'll see on your apps page in the App Store. We've got the Apple provided mock-up on the side there, and it's just more explicit, more accessible way of showing you what an app is doing with your data and what data it knows about you. This will become a requirement for every app. It's not going to generate it for you from the apps that are there, so it will probably only be as and when you update your apps once iOS 14 goes live. It's those 2 boxes. So it's the data used to track you, and it's the data linked to you. So it's an extra step when you're submitting your app to just explain what this is, and in certain cases explain why you need it. Again, it's sort of unclear how much of an impact this has on users just ignoring it and downloading your app or not worrying about it, and it's quite unclear, and this might become more clear now that it's more explicit, and we're interested to see that. There are more things you'll notice if you do, well, once you get onto iOS 14, and there are a lot more pop-ups asking you to opt into things, and I've just added a couple through my anecdotal testing. Clipboard snooping is a big one, and it's been in the news quite a bit. A lot of apps are looking at what's on your clipboard, largely harmlessly, but now every single time you open an app that does that, it will tell you about it. The other one that really shocked me is the connecting to devices on your network. A lot of apps I open now, I get a pop-up saying, this app wants to know what else is on your Wi-Fi. And you have to agree to that. And then photo access, which does occasionally pop up in our apps for certain providers. You can now choose that on a sort of a per album, per category vibe, rather than just allowing blanket access. In general, out of the box, our products ask for none of these permissions. We only ask for push notifications if you've got a push provider configured. We don't know location. We don't need to connect to other devices on your network. We don't look at your clipboard. But again, some of the third-party SDKs that you will have configured with us might, and we can discuss those as and when they come up. And most of those guys are updating their SDKs to get rid of that, or they'll probably be talking to you to explain why they're doing it. And which could, of course, be very, very good reason. But yeah, our apps out of the box should not prompt any of those extra pop-ups that you'll get once iOS 14 goes live.
Cool. So another announcement this year are is a reworking of the home screen, and notably new home widgets. Now, just quick trip down history lane here. Widgets aren't new to iOS. They have been around since 2014 and iOS 8, but they were buried off to that left-hand screen, to the left of all your home screens, or hidden behind a force touch, 3D touch gesture. And Android has had these since 2009 and Cupcake. And those screenshots are roughly to scale, I believe, which is also sort of a fun reminder of how much screen sizes have changed in the last decade. So these new home screens have a lot of potential, we think. If for no other reason than the novelty factor initially when iOS 14 lands and people for the first time can play with, for the first time in iOS's history, can play with a slightly different idiom on their home screens. But yeah, we're working with Tortoise at the moment on some home screen widgets, and Tortoise are very aware of how engaged their members are, and because we do think that engagement is very important to the success of these new widgets because of how much screen real estate they're going to take. But yeah, we're exploring with Tortoise now. So Tortoise have think-ins, which adds an interesting dimension to it, where during an active think-in, they think it could be interesting to have the home screen widget show that the think-in is live and have tapping it take you straight to the video link, for instance. But yeah, so we're keen to hear from anyone else who might be interested or has some ideas around home screen widgets and would like to work with us to get some sort of home screen widget out there as close to release as possible, to iOS 14's release, so that their customers can play with them. Other feature announced by Apple at WWDC this year, and another feature copied from a previous version of Android, are app clips, which Google has had since 2014 and calls Google Play Instant. Here, the use case for them, for our customers, is less clear, but please do come talk to us. As when Google announced it, and Apple demoed use cases around coffee shops, or mobility, these Lime scooters that you just rent, and sort of short-term, potentially environment-specific use cases. And in fact, to that end, app clips have this weird location permission without even a location prompt. So an app clip can check whether it is launched within a catchment area, so that you can enforce that this app is only really useful when you're standing right next to a Santander cycling point or something, for instance. But yeah, again, if you can think of a use case where you think an app clip would work for you, please do come and talk to us. We'd love to help you with that and explore that. So I know this may not seem like the case given how much we've just talked about new things and changing things, but actually this year's WWDC was quite light on the iOS and iPad front and much more heavy on the Mac front because of the big change that Apple has announced, switching from Intel chips to their own silicon. Now, last year they announced Catalyst, which is an SDK that enables cheaper porting of iOS code to the Mac platform, and cheaper but not free. And it was its first year. It had limitations. This year they've announced major improvements to Catalyst, again to sort of encourage people who already have iOS and iPad apps to make a little bit of an effort to produce a Mac version of their app. But even further than that, for these future hypothetical, well, I guess they're not hypothetical, but these future Apple Silicon Macs, all existing iOS and iPad apps are going to be opted in by default to being available on the Mac. annoyingly, I couldn't find a good screenshot. So that all I have is they demoed it very briefly in, I can't remember if it was the keynote or the state of the platform video. But yeah, it's basically the app launched in a window on these new future Macs. And so I'd be, well, sorry, yeah, we'll get to that and come back to that in a second. Yeah, so Apple has, since earlier this year, really been pushing hard for app publishers to publish a single a single application on as many or as few platforms as makes sense. But importantly, Apple is really pushing this idea that you have a single presence, a single app, which is available on all or as many of the platforms as makes sense.
Yeah, so to that end, and to kind of provide a bit of a market context, one of the things that for me, coming from a marketing perspective, I sort of wonder, well, why is Apple doing this? How are they trying to make more money? So I'd love to get your quick feedback about, do you think that this potential update unlocks any further revenue potential for publishers on desktop platforms now? So to provide some context, Apple has over 1 billion users across 1.5 billion devices, obviously the large majority of them being on iPhone, but there's an audience of about 100 million roughly that are not on iPhone and are perhaps a new audience that publishers could reach via their apps. So again, it's poll time. Let me ask this one. Which is, yeah, what's your gut instinct? Do you think that this update unlocks further revenue potential for desktop? You might think, no, you know what, desktop is really just for web browsers. Perhaps you think, yes, Apple's got this in the bag. They're going to try to make more money from apps on mobile, or don't know. I'll let you let a few more answers come in. All right, we've got a majority. Well, let me share these results, which are pretty mixed. So yeah, we've got the majority saying, I don't know. Well, welcome to the camp. The next largest majority saying yes, that maybe Apple's got their head on straight and this is a new way for them to make money. But again, perhaps there's still a cohort of users saying, actually, maybe the desktop isn't where apps should be at the moment. So thanks for participating. But actually, I've got a follow-up question to this poll, which is, so given that Nick has said that Apple is going to make these apps, or make apps available on desktop by default, as a publisher, you then have to opt out of this feature. So my next question is, would you opt out of allowing your apps on Mac desktops? So sorry if there's a bit of confusion around the double negatives, I'll explain the answers, but yes, I would opt out and you would not allow your apps on desktop. Or no, you're gonna go with the flow, we're gonna follow Apple, we'll go with the default and put our apps on Mac desktops, or you're still on the fence. So we've got some more votes coming in. So the majority would go with the flow. There is one person who would actively opt out, and the rest remain unsure. So at this point, we wanted to talk about, well, we've talked a lot about Apple. What's going on with Android? Come on, Google people. Well, unfortunately, Google had canceled their developer conference this year. So as much as we would have loved to share information about Apple and Google cohesively in one sort of session, thus it's not meant to be. However, we are staying on top of what's coming with Android 11, and you'll certainly hear more from us as soon as we have more to share with you. So at this point, we are happy to take any questions. Feel free to shoot some in the chat window. I haven't seen any yet. I think we've got one coming in now. So you mentioned that the update is happening in September or October. Any further granularity on what dates? Yeah, no. Here you go. You're unmuted now, though. Yeah.
October release. 2 weeks later. It would depend, I would imagine, on the supply chain. So if they're certain of getting out in October, they'll still announce it in September and release them at the end of October. If they aren't sure, the announcement might be a lot closer to the end of October. But yeah, we really don't know a huge amount more than you do. They're a very secretive company.
Okay, just to clarify, sorry, I think there was an issue with Harry's mic there really quickly. But no, we don't have any further granularity over exactly when in October, but we will keep you all posted. Any more questions? No? Okay. Well, so I suspect there's probably lots of individual questions that might shoot up as a result of individual app.
Yeah, John, we've got another question. Will the ability to run apps on macOS be limited to new hardware only? The answer is yes. If I didn't make that clear, sorry. This opt-out is, the apps running on Mac will only be on these new, yet to be released Apple Silicon Macs. Yeah, that's the answer.
Okay, any more questions from the gallery? Okay then, so as I mentioned earlier, this session has been recorded. We will have notes available, and again, if there's any individual app support requests as a customer of Pugpig that we can help you out with, we are here at your to help you. So please do get in touch if you've got any questions about the content of this presentation, around what's been announced at Worldwide Developer Conference and what we're going to make as part of the product. And again, some of these new features that we've discussed, or trying to get your feedback on about how we're going to develop the product further, and if you'd like to work with us on any of those particular features that might be relevant to your publishing audiences. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good one.